Right. Welcome, comrades. Welcome, Zimbabwean workers. Welcome, workers in Africa, to the Worker Voice live stream. Today, we are looking at turning lemon into lemonade, the story of struggles of Dr. Hilary Musarurwa, a former trade unionist, a workers' committee representative, who defied all odds and, despite being victimized by the employer, initially dismissed and fought for his reinstatement for 2 years, reinstated and then targeted for dismissal for retrenchment. He went on to show that victimization does not destroy trade unionists in any way. And now he holds 2 PhD degrees. I don't mean one, but 2 PhD degrees on top of an MPhil. So we want to talk to Dr. Hilary Musarurwa and hear his inspirational story so that he motivates you and motivates me. Dr. Musarurwa, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much, Comrade Mutasa, for hosting me, and thank you for the kind introduction.
Good. You know, your story is very inspirational. From being a workers' committee representative, a trade unionist who was always at loggerheads with the employer, from being victimized, and then when the employer thought they'd pulled you down by retrenching you, a targeted retrenchment. I know I was representing you in all these ordeals. You then went on to scale great heights in academic sphere. And now you are very few people who have got 2 PhDs. I'm yearning to have 1 PhD. You have 2. Obviously, this story must motivate someone out there, our kids, ourselves, trade unionists, and anyone else in Zimbabwe. Any Zimbabwean should be motivated by this good story. But let's start. Who is Hilary Musarurwa in terms of background, in terms of where you grew up in, and what your life had been? Were you privileged like others who have scaled great heights in academic sphere?
I'll start with the last bit on the privileged part. No, I don't think I was privileged. Maybe the privilege comes in the sense that at least my father was there to pay for my primary and secondary education. I was raised up by a single mother, and she fought her way through for maintenance and support from my father. I think my parents divorced when I was very young. I never stayed with my father at all. So I grew up staying with my mother, who was also unemployed. She would survive by at times doing cross-border trading and things like that. And I think my first job was when I was in Form 3. My father, yes, he ran an engineering company. He was a partner in one of renowned civil engineering companies. But he would say, look, you want pocket money, you go and you work for it. Back then, it felt like he was being cruel and all, but I think it also helped to develop the resilience that's in me. So that being me, in terms of where I grew up, I think I was all over the place. I was born in Kadoma. I grew up playing in the dusty streets of Remuka. That's where I did my primary schooling, and then when the PEM era in Kadoma came about, and there was victimization of ZAPU supporters in the Midlands. I had to be moved from Kadoma to Harare simply because my grandmother was a staunch ZAPU supporter. So I grew up with the activism blood in me, because I think my grandmother was very vocal. I know of a narration where, after having endured the beatings of ZANU-PF and left for dead, she was taken by one of her daughters to Bulawayo to just recuperate. And lo and behold, when my aunt was coming from work, she heard her mother chanting "Puza" at a Zapu rally. And she was shocked. She said, this is someone from Kandoma with injuries, but here she is already at a rally. So I think that firebrand nature also caught up with me. So going into the employment world, maybe let's go back a little bit into A level. I did my A levels. Didn't do pretty much well. I think I got 3 points at A level. But with those 3 points, some people might not believe it, but back then I did get an offer for a place at Wits to study medicine, and all that was needed was 6,000 rands, which unfortunately my father could not afford. And my father was clear to say, "Look, I cannot give you that 6,000 rands." So my dream to become a doctor went through the window. And I was fortunate enough to join the banking sector. I think that's when I started working for Barclays. Back then, I think most banks had this on-the-job training. So most people coming from A level would get into the banking sector. I joined the banking sector. I tried to do a degree with UNISA. I pushed, I think, for the first 3 or so years and failed to complete it because the money was just not enough, because I was paying off it from my salary. So the only thing I managed to do was to complete the full set of the IOBZ diploma in banking. Back then it had 3 stages. I completed that and then moved jobs within the banking sector. In all this, I was an active workers representative. So I don't think workers representative are at loggerheads with employers. It's just that employers don't understand that as workers we have a right, and when you speak for your right, you become a nuisance. You are targeted. So
yeah, so I saw you and first interacted with you. Obviously, when you were at Barclays, you were very active, but you then became more active at Agribank. And the moment I saw you addressing, it was in Agribank, Robert Mugabe, if I'm not mistaken. And we wanted to push for a salary increase at the sector level. And we're moving around the banks to talk to workers, and you motivated everyone. And everyone demanded that we should immediately issue a strike notice. Immediately, I fell in love with your activism. But within time, you were having problems with the employer. What happened? What was your experience at Agribank?
So the Agribank narrative is I became an active member of our National Workers Committee. And through my interactions with one of my clients back then at Agribank, Robert Mugabe, we got an opportunity to apply to be part of a housing scheme that the city of Harare was rolling out. All they wanted were workers who could come in as an organized group and contribute towards the servicing of stamps in places like Claudina, places like, I think there was one just outside Southley Park. So these were just initiatives where the workers would contribute on their own. Some companies were fortunate enough that their employers were like, no, we will make contributions for you towards whatever is needed. So I then approached Agribank to say, look, we need just a letter to be able to be part of this scheme so that we join the consortium in Claudina. Believe you me, it took more than a year of me knocking on the HR manager's door and even accosting the CEO in one of our meetings to say, look, all we are asking for is a letter. We are not asking for a loan, because his defense was like, no, if we give you that letter, the next thing is you are going to ask for us to give you housing loans and all. And we're like, no, we'll pay from our Miaga salary. We will pay for a stand. I mean, it doesn't make sense that we are working in the banking sector and we cannot even afford to pay for a stand. We are lodgers. So after more than a year of pushing, the letter finally came. And by the time we submitted that letter to the Claudina Housing Consortium, yeah, most of the freestanding stands had gone, but we got it. And that came with a huge expense on me, because I think a few months down the line, I was now victimized and targeted for dismissal. And I'm sure you know the gist within the employment sector, that the first hearing is usually stage managed such that you are dismissed, and that is what happened. They dismissed me on the first hearing, and I remember you came in to represent me, and interestingly enough, as we went to the second hearing now, and I was also dismissed. I recall very much you wrote a letter appealing that dismissal, to say it was not procedural, because the proper procedure was that it was supposed to go to the NEC. Therefore, it meant that I was not dismissed, but I should go back to work and be reinstated. I laugh at this, because by the time I got home from the CBD to Warren Park, by the time I got home by 1 p.m., I think the hearing took place at 10 or 11, and 2 hours later, when I got home, a messenger had already been sent with another letter from Agribank, stating that I remained suspended for some dubious reason, because I had chosen the route to appeal against the second hearing. So I remained suspended until they did further investigation. The thing is, their story did not hold water, and it did not stand. So interestingly, they said you now remain suspended for us to do further investigation. So it was a bit strange to say, you are doing further investigations for what? Because you presented your case, it did not hold water, and there was no evidence to warrant my dismissal. So that then took us onto a whirlwind, I think, for about 2 years, as we tried to appeal this matter. I recall we went to the arbitration court, we went to the labor court, and 2 years down the line, I was reinstated with full benefits. Unfortunately, most of those benefits were swallowed by Gono's famous zeros, because I remember when I came back, we now had a suspense account for all Zim dollar payments, and I did not get most of my retrenchment of my reinstatement package. And then a few months down the line, I was moved to the mailroom. I protested that because I was asthmatic. Then, because I said that I cannot work in the mailroom due to my health condition, I was then told to go and work in Guruwe. I think I only spent 30 minutes in Guruwe. The manager there, God bless his soul, was like, "Look, I don't want to be involved in your politics." Back then, I think we had the system where people were working in 2 weeks in, 2 weeks out, or a month in and a month out. So he said, you know what, you've got an accumulation of leave days that go back to the period when you were fired. So you can take leave, and when you come back, I'm sure something will have been worked out. So by the time I came back from that first leave, there was an option for retrenchment. I applied for that retrenchment package. I think within 24 hours it was approved. I was told that you've got 105 leave days, so you have to take your leave days because we're not going to pay for them. So I think on reinstatement, the most I worked at Agribank was for just slightly over 2 months, and then the rest is history. So with that retrenchment, to be honest, in Shona they say kukikadachka kuri yambutsa. That is exactly what.
So I want to hear more about that, but it's a fascinating story here. For those who are joining us, you can ask questions, you can make your comments. But I'm speaking to Dr. Hilary Musarurwa. He holds 2 PhDs. We're going to find out why 2 PhD and how he managed that feat when all of us are struggling to have one. But his activism story is quite inspiring. When he came back, I thought maybe he will not continue with the struggle, but he came back and continued with the struggle. So when the employer retrenched you, for many people, especially trade unionists, when you are retrenched, when you are targeted, you are depressed, it may appear to be a death sentence in terms of economic well-being. How did you take it? How did you take it the day you were retrenched? How did you discuss with your kids, with your family?
Well, I think maybe somehow I had prepared for the retrenchment, because whilst I was fighting for my reinstatement, I had started a youth empowerment organization, more so as a protest organization, because that organization was called Practical Empowerment and Networking Youth Association, more in retaliation to the rhetoric that the likes of Kasukuwere, who were running the youth ministry then, were going around saying they are empowering youth, but not really benefiting people who were not linked to ZANU-PF. So I started Penya, and I put to use my banking experience, where I was assisting young people to write business proposals and apply for the youth fund. I remember at one occasion, I also confronted Kasukuwere in one of the events where they were launching, I think, another series of the youth fund, and I questioned him in terms of their sincerity on giving people access to these loans. He then said I should come to his office the following day, which I gladly did. And because of that push, I managed to get myself and a number of other young people to access the youth loans back then. So when this retrenchment package came, it's something that I sort of like needed to help me move this organization forward. So it helped in terms of setting up office and getting more activities working. And I think around that time I was also now involved in the COPAC process, and I think that's when I began to support young people through running internship and attachment programs. So we would get students from universities who would come in on attachment, and I would mentor them. I didn't have a degree then, and I would tell them that, look, the moment you come here, your degree does not work. You leave it by the gate, because here I train people to work. It is not a paper that works. So with that mantra, with that drive, would get to push people to really commit and to work. And I think most of the students that we took in on attachment went back to their respective universities and got distinctions for their internships. So,
wow, so that's quite a good experience as well. But let's come back. Let's come back to. Let's quickly go to your academic journey.
yes.
Once a trade unionist, always a trade unionist. Would you say your your trade union background and experience benefited you or assisted you in your academic journey? And I know you started with an MPhil. How did you then move on to the academic journey?
No, I think the trade unionism pushed me towards being a social justice activist, where you want to see access for everyone, especially the downtrodden, where you want to see people getting services and support. I think this is why, even up to now, I always make noise about a number of service delivery issues. So that trade unionism background pushed me into the MPhil was on inclusive innovations, where we're trying to look at how we can come up with social entrepreneurship or social innovation solution. So for me, I wanted to explore ways of setting up a bank that is youth focused, that would give young people loans based on on their potential, not on financial background or financial history. And it was there when I was doing the MPhil that I also then fell in love with research and academia, and I still wanted to push the social justice lens. So my first PhD was in peace studies, where I was now exploring ways on how to mobilize and activate young people to participate in local governance and democracy using social enterprises. How can we set up a social enterprise in a community and use that as a rally point to mobilize young people? So my work and my research has always been about mobilizing people to speak out and mobilizing people to get access to support or service. So I then went to do my first PhD, where I was working with a small group of young people in Norton, and we did a bit of action research. On the other hand, because I came from a banking background and a management background, I always wanted to do a PhD in management. So whilst I'd been applying for the PhD in peace studies, which came more as a serendipitous occasion, because I didn't have anything to do at that moment, and this opportunity to do this PhD came. So I jumped on it. Believe you me, I was not getting much. I remember back then in 2016, we were being given something like 4,000 rands per month, which was just enough to pay for my accommodation in res. And I had a family and kids back in Zimbabwe who needed support. So that was a tough moment, but I had to do it. And then 18 months into this PhD, I saw an opportunity for a PhD in management in the UK. I'd already advanced with this first one, already had done my data collection, and was more or less now on the writing up stage. So I applied. Who would not miss the opportunity to go to the UK to study? So these guys interviewed me. They were impressed with what I was planning to do. That research was also on supporting university students in improving their financial well-being and looking at how we can improve financial behavior and financial management in young people. So I had to decide whether to drop the first one and go to the second one or just continue. So I silently continued with the second one because it was now just writing up. I only told my supervisors then that I had graduated from my first PhD after the graduation date, which was I think 18 months or so into the second PhD. They were not surprised.
You were holding on 2 PhDs and studying in 2 different universities at the same time.
I was registered.
Was that not difficult?
No, it was not really difficult per se, because remember with the other one, I was now writing up. So it was me putting together chapters and sending them to my supervisor, because the data had been collected, the analysis had been done. I had to balance time. I had to balance time because I also then moved to the UK. I had to balance time between writing up for that one and also now doing the groundwork for my second PhD. The other advantage with the UK PhD was that it came with a graduate teaching assistant post, which was paid. So that then also helped pretty much improve my financial situation, because I think that stipend you get is more than £1,500. So imagine jumping from getting 4,000 rands to £1,500. It was helpful. I had to balance the two quite well. At some point, I did struggle with the second one. I think you see the pressure and the demand from the UK academic system was way different from the pressure and demand from the South African academic system, where I got my first PhD. The expectations from the supervisors was also elevated. So we did here and there have clashes, and I to try to restrain myself and act like someone who has not been on this journey. But it helped me, because if I'd come out to say, look, I've already moved part of this journey, I know what I'm doing, it wouldn't have helped me to improve as a researcher. Because believe you me, that UK experience did expose me to more transferable skills. It did expose me to a more rigorous way of doing research. In the UK, you prepare
Right.
for a
So,
vice.
Comrade Hilary, we need to wind up in 5 minutes or so, but let's look at these things. You were earning just 4,000 rands. You had a family to look up to. It's very difficult for everyone. All of us want to go and do a PhD, but we think about all those responsibilities, kids in school and the like. What would you say to people who are undecided because of all those considerations?
You see, I think you need to look ahead. It's a sacrifice you make. You have to sacrifice for the 3 or so years that you're going to be doing such a study. But I think you also need to be able to look ahead to say, okay, what are the opportunities that could come out after this? If you're fortunate enough, depending on the institution where you go to, you would get a good scholarship. You get good funding and good support. So it's not all institutions where you get small amounts. And also, I think I was fortunate that in the second year of my first PhD, one of my funders came on board, and they give you, I think, a good amount of about 100,000 rands to that you can spread over a year. So that also helped. So the thing is, you don't need to shy away or to stop yourself from immersing into this academic journey because of these financial restrictions. It's a sacrifice that has to be made. It's a sacrifice that has to be made also in consultation with your family members. It can create tension. Dzimba dzinoputsika. Some people can divorce, because whilst you are on this academic journey, you also need support from your partner. You also need support from your family. The absence of that support can be devastating. So yeah, I think in finance we say where there is a risk, there is a high return. So you need to make a calculated move on that regard.
Well, so comrades, I'm talking to the Rumuka boy who grew up in Rumuka, and then Agribank Workers Committee, Barclays Bank Workers Committee, Zimbabwe Banks and Allied Workers Union, trade unionist. He has refused to get out of the struggle, because when he finished his PhD, the first one, he has been assisting the union with some research and also some work on cooperatives. He has assisted us a lot in terms of intellectual knowledge on cooperatives for the union. So it is an inspirational, truly motivational comrade, says Comrade Tendai Ruben Bofana, a social justice activist of note in Zimbabwe. And thank you for following, and thank you for this generous comment. But Comrade Musarurwa, what would you say to trade unionists? You were in the trade union movement with only a diploma. Now that you have 2 PhDs and an MPhil, let's say you had this whilst you were still a trade unionist, would you think this would have made you a different trade unionist? And do you encourage trade unionists to go on to school and to acquire education? Does that benefit the members that we represent and the organizational capacity in terms of our organizations as trade unions?
Yes, I think it would have made me a better trade unionist. We need to actually be researching on trade unionism. We need to actually be documenting the struggles that workers are facing. I think research helps bring together facts on the table. It helps even strengthen your argument when you're negotiating. So I would encourage trade unionists to get into research. I would encourage them to improve on their knowledge, because let's be honest, without research we bring in cooked figures or raw figures to the negotiating table, and the employer can easily trash out demands. So I encourage more people to be involved in trade union research. I think we do have a few academics who are into trade union research, and we have been pushing for workers' rights going way back. We need more to be coming out from the ranks of trade unions. I mean, it's good to have someone who has experienced the work in the trenches, who knows the struggle, to come out there and now be researching and showcasing this to not only to the world but also to stubborn employers. Because I think when you present facts and figures, any stubborn employer would be moved.
Yeah, so thank you very much for that advice. And we were always motivating each other at Zimbabwe that we need to go to school, we need to have, and now you may be pleased to know that Comrade Thierry is now with a master's in law. We've got Comrade Paul, who has finished his LLB and is into practice and is going for a master's. I'm very fortunate. I'm the most fortunate general secretary in Zimbabwe with 4 lawyers in the office who were trained through the union program and who are still with the union, 3 of them holding masters and 1 with an LLB. And so we are seeing the difference as well in terms of how we are representing workers. We are also seeing in terms of how we are cutting on costs, legal costs. We can argue with any lawyer in this country and successfully win our matter. You remember how we destroyed the Agribank matter in the labor court. I was still a greenhorns, very, very, very much into labor law, and we destroyed their senior advocates, and they could not match. But now we are more lethal than then. But let's end with your passion. You have got a passion for the youth. What do you think are the crises for the youth in this country? What sort of crises are youth going through, and what are possible solutions?
No, I think first and foremost, the major crisis is the lack of role models. We have been sold the so-called mbingas as role models for most young people, whom we don't really know how they've gotten their wealth. The mbingas and the slay queens of Zimbabwe become the role models of most young people. So it's the lack or the absence therein of role models. And I think we need a lot of people, a lot of astute citizens to come forward and raise up their hands to say, look, I'm here. I want to be a role model for young people. I want to guide them through. I think the other problem we have is the issue of self-organization. Young people should be supported to self-organize and to speak out, to put out their demands. We've got issues of unemployment. It's unfortunate in the current setting that cannot be addressed by a docile youth who are not active in governance and elections. So I think we've heard the word that people should register to vote. Look, yes, register to vote. Who you decide to vote for, that's up to you, but use your vote wisely. The starting point is register to vote. We need to activate youth to be more participatory in these issues, and also to be developing our communities. I think the moment we have people who can easily go into some of these communities and support local ideas, it will help us in developing homegrown solutions within the community and take advantage of any social value that is within that community. There's a lot of social capital that young people can make use of, and there's need for, I think, an intergenerational interaction where the older generation gets to transfer some knowledge to the young people. I think knowledge is not only transferred in institutions of academia, but knowledge is also transferred through day-to-day interactions. Let us open up our hearts and our DMs and our inboxes to be able to transfer knowledge to young people. We will make a difference.
Well, thank you very much. And there is a young worker, a young person there, Comrade Ombera Inende, is saying this is a motivating story. You need, Comrade Hilary says, raise your voice, don't stop. And I know Comrade Nende and others continue to be torchbearers in terms of demanding democracy and social justice in this country. And the youngsters who are raising their voices in a very difficult and dictatorship, military dictatorship. We salute you, Comrade Nende, and all the youngsters that are out there fighting for democracy. Comrade Musarurwa, thank you very much. I think your story is one of the most motivational and inspirational stories of the trade unions in Zimbabwe. It shows us that with determination, anyone can do it, from Remuka, from Sakupa, from Bizo, from Makokova, from Rujeko, from anywhere you are, you can still make it. We have someone who struggled in growing up, but now holding 2 PhDs, trade unionists holding 2 PhDs, and we wish to thank you for taking time. As you give us your parting shot, we just call you whenever we want at Zimbabwe, and I've just spoke to you on Twitter and said, what about an interview to motivate the youth? Would you be available to talk deeply about how the youth can access opportunities in terms of the skills opportunities, the scholarships, and also access opportunities in different self-help projects that you're talking about, and also what makes you humble, holding 2 PhDs? You have never said you are too busy for us.
Well, I think I owe my being right now to the union. So anytime you call on me, I'm available, because we've been together in the trenches. This is one of the few ways I can repay the debt that I owe the union. So yes, we can meet up anytime. You can arrange for a follow-up. Maybe I would say that let people share questions with you, and then we'll be able to respond to those questions in any follow-up interview we might have. And I thank you. I'm not sure what has happened to Comrade Mutasa. We are live, but the host is gone. But I think to anyone who can hear me, please send in your questions to Comrade Mutasa, and we can organize that I respond to specific questions in any subsequent interview, so that this is beneficial. It should not be about my story, but it should be about also supporting and helping others to walk this journey. Thank you very much. What happened?